Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
You know, sometimes when you make these songs, it's like the old fellas are telling you, yeah, that's the one, you said what we wanted you to say. They heard the song, the presets, and they loved what we did with it, and they let us do it. And because it is the first time they've let anyone sample their stuff, it was a pretty big deal in the industry and that, so it made a bit of noise.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Nowra Bales.
Alrighty, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of this amazing conference to join myself and my guest, who you'll meet in just a moment, for a live broadcast of a podcast that was a side hustle and is now the only, I think it's still the only Indigenous podcast signed to the iHeart network. So that's one of my biggest raps is like, you can hear us on Virgin as well. So if you're flying Virgin, make sure you listen to the Black Magic Woman. But I'm here joining you from my mother's country. My mother's mother and her mother and her mother, and at least 9 generations of my family have been in Redfern on Gadigal country, or the Block. So if you're from Sydney and you've been here for a couple of generations, especially if you are Koori or Mob, the Block is a place that I don't even need to tell you where it is. I live in Queensland. I live on Kabi country, the Sunshine Coast. Anyone been? Noosa, Maroochydore, Mooloolaba, all of those beautiful places. And it has never felt like home. And for an Aboriginal woman from Redfern, I would say that there's no place like Redfern. I think the closest place, now Michael Jackson said this, believe it or not. Whoopi Goldberg said this. And so did MC Hammer. They said that Redfern reminded them of where they grew up. So I feel really privileged to say that born and raised on the Block, this is my hometown, and I literally feel this sense of peace. We even settled even after 1 year after the failed referendum. So here I am on beautiful Gadigal country, and the language that was once spoken here and still spoken by a few people, the Darug language, we say Warrami. So Warrami Wangari, Naya Bimbibila Mandanara, Naya Gadigal Nura. So what I'm saying is I'm here on Gadigal country, and my name is Mandanara, and I've been trying to learn the language that my ancestors once spoke. I have a few kind of questions that I want to jump straight into, but in Aboriginal culture, who you are is much more important than what you do. So human relationships come first. And that's kind of the format. My culture has inspired me to do podcasting, storytelling. But it's inspired me to try and showcase as best as I can to mainstream Australia, because this was in lockdown that we launched this podcast. I wanted to showcase Black excellence, and my brother, perfect guest for this episode, because in everything that you do and the music that you write, and with We Are Warriors, what I kept picking up when I was doing my research was Black excellence. This podcast was born out of a global pandemic where people felt more isolated than ever before. And for Black fellas to be isolated, it's an interesting feeling. I'd never ever felt that I was alone in my own country. So spiritually, I've always felt that someone was with me. So we have to remember that every day we're walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. So I'm going to kind of draw on my old people, because this is, my country, my birthplace, to get us through this yarn. And I'm going to try and keep it lighthearted, even though we're going to talk about some themes that may be a little bit triggering. I just want to put it out there for people here in the room and for people that are listening as well. We've got a national hotline, 13 Yarn, 24 hours, 7 days a week, for Mob to be able to talk to someone, hearing our experiences, our lived experiences as black fellas. I talk about my life and who we are and what we do every day, and I do it with a smile on my face. I don't do it for people's sympathy. So I'm a proud black woman, born and raised in Redfern, and everything that I do, it's kind of strength-based and centering black excellence. So don't see us as First Nations peoples as victims. We're not victims, we're owners and runners of country. So we have to remind ourselves as Australians that it wasn't that long ago that we were running an entire country. So on that note, what a good way to introduce you, my brother. I'm going to hand over to my guest on the show. And if you've been listening to Black Magic Woman, you would know that I don't introduce my guests. And I think it's probably best that people can kind of talk about who they are and where they come from in their own words and also on their own terms. So, Brother Nooky, the microphone is all yours.
Solid. Well, yeah, my name's Nooky. I'm a Yuin and Thunghutti breed. Born and raised down in Nowra for my South Coast family there. Belong to the Jiringanj and the Walbunja mob on the Yuin side. And yeah, my great-grandmother's from a little place just outside Kempsey called Bellbrook.
Bellbrook Mission,
Yeah, Bellbrook Mission, yeah, that's where my great-grandmother's from. So yeah, half my family from up there too. But yeah, born and raised down Nowra there. And, you know, hearing you talk about the block, it's... yeah, there was a lot of similarities, you know, that sense of community and family and stuff, like, and that's one thing I took from you from down there was like, you know, when you grow up in a place like that, you know you're always right, you know what I mean? Everyone else might have this view on the area and what it's like, but when you're born there, you grow up there, like, you're right. So yeah, a lot of similarities between Nowra and Redfern, and it's actually, when I got kicked out of school, it's the first place I went to. So yeah, 17 years old, got kicked out of school, and I had an auntie who lived on Little Everly Street, just up next to the station there. So yeah, spent a lot of time there when I left home, yeah.
Brother, this is one thing that we do as black fellas, right? Like this fella says, I'm from Nowra. My dad and my grandmother were in radio. And so Radio Redfern in Cope Street was founded by my late grandmother, Maureen Watson, and she'll be on a Google Doodle next month. I can't tell you any more because I signed an NDA with Google. But she literally, in the 1970s started a radio station, and then my dad went into media as well. And one of my dad's best friends that he called his brother was the late Uncle Bobby McLeod. So when I was 14, this is a true story, we got our first birth certificates. There are 200,000 Aboriginal Australians today that do not have a birth certificate, that can't open a bank account, that can't get a Centrelink payment because they don't have 100 points ID, will never be able to travel the world because they can't get a passport. Something that a lot of Australians take for granted. Anyhow, my mum registered my birth in 1996 as a 14-year-old, and we were going over to Aotearoa, aka New Zealand, with Uncle Bobby McLeod. So Uncle Bobby and his whole dance troupe, the Dunwich Dancers, invited my sisters and I, as I used to be in an all-female traditional Aboriginal dance group. And we used to dance the dances of the Gummich people from Arnhem Land. If you heard of the late Mundawoy or Gulleroy Yunupingu, these are their dances when we talk about the Gummich dancers. So Uncle Bobby invited us to tour Aotearoa with the Dunwich Dancers for 6 weeks. We got to actually, Bobby McLeod, young Bobby, Larry, Cecil, Andrew, all the boys. And it's interesting I grew up in a family with all girls, 8 sisters, no brothers, and then we're on tour with all men. So that was my introduction into hearing about Nowra.
Yeah.
And then when I was reading your bio, I'm like, you fellas, are you related?
Yeah. So,
same mob?
Yeah, same. So Uncle Bobby there, I think his mum and my great-grandfather was first cousins. But grew up with all the boys, Uncle Andrew, Uncle Larry and them, like the older fellas, you know, looked after us, taught us all how to dance. So Uncle Cecil in particular, like when I was in school, it was hard for me, you know, so I used to get in trouble a lot, and my mum, she kind of recognised that it wasn't working for me, it wasn't the sort of environment that I thrived in. So she went down to school one day and said, hey, you know, he's struggling a little bit, you know, things ain't working out. can his uncles come in and be like his teacher support people? And so I had two uncles come in there with me, and it was Uncle Richard Moore and Uncle Cecil. And whenever I'd be feeling angry or was mucking up or whatever, they'd take me out of class and take me down to the Oval and teach me song and dance. And yeah, that was mad. That's kind of what got me through school. Really helped. So it informed the base that I'd carry now for music. It all started with them two, taking me down and showing me that, and then started off with just me. And then all the other cousins there, they seen it, and then they all started coming, and it was kind of like the next generation of Dunwich coming up from that. Yeah.
I was going to say, because Uncle Bobby McLeod, if you don't know, never heard of him, he was an amazing musician. Amazing musician. And listening to you talk about, rap about, not just our struggles, but even those messages, I can hear it. I was listening to, I hardly listen to music on planes. I work on every plane.
Yeah.
And this trip, I decided just to listen. And I was like, when you're present and you can actually really hear what kind of messages have been relayed or spoken to you, I felt like you were speaking to me.
Oh, cheers.
And I just want to say that, the music that you've been creating and the hope to younger generations, but the hope for black fellas today in 2024, I think we need to hear more kind of musicians and just people in general spreading words or messages that give people hope in a world where it feels like there's no kind of light at the end of the tunnel. So right now, where I am in my life, your music spoke to me, and it just felt like this was the right time to have someone like you on the podcast.
Solid.
So can you tell me really quickly, in terms of music, how did you end up, first getting signed by Sony?
Oh, yeah.
How did you end up, from Nowra, a kid that was in trouble at school, to then coming to Redfern, to now, how many ARIAs are you up for? 3 ARIA awards? 4? 4 people?
Yeah.
Tell us, how, where, what?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a bit of a long yarn, that one. But so how it happened, school was extremely hard for me. And Nowra, like you might have heard from Uncle Bobby back then, it was like there was a lot of racism. There was a lot of shit around. Like the mayor of Nowra at one time, he NAIDOC week, all weeks, he thought it was a good idea to get the blackfella flag and set it on fire. Uncle Bobby wasn't too happy about that. He made him apologise. Always said he was going to burn down the council house, and Uncle Bobby probably would have done it.
Uncle Bobby was pretty staunch.
So yeah, there was that old racist attitude. It kind of, I don't know if it's gone yet. Definitely bleeding out slowly, but there's probably parts of it. I live in Sydney now, so I can't talk too much on what it's like down there anymore. But it was really hard for me. And I struggled a lot at school, and then I had a cousin who lived in Newcastle, right? So he lived in the city and was exposed to different things, like different opportunities and that. And I'd only see this fella for holidays. And he was like the cool big cousin I used to try and be like, and his name was Selway. And so if he was being good, then I'd be good. If he was being bad, I'd be bad. And I heard a yarn about him smashing the window at the school dance. So next school disco I go to, I smashed the window.
You thought it'd be cool to do.
And then so he started rapping, and listening to him rap and tell his story, it really opened my eyes to what's possible. And because I didn't know we could do that. And I remember hearing him rap for the first time. I said, "Oh, cuz, we can do that?" And he goes, "Yeah." So he kind of set me on that journey with music. And I was that tormenting little cousin. I always used to torment him to rap, and convinced him to make me a little CD with beats on it one time. And I used to carry this with me everywhere down home. Always listen to it. And going through school, I would have been the first in my family to ever finish school, and that was like a big thing for me. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be the first one to ever finish school. I get to year 12, and I was rapping a lot, just hanging out at the youth centre, making songs, and I get to year 12, and for me, HSC, like my year 12 project, right, I was at the end. I was almost done. I thought for the my final school project, I'd make a little album and submit that. So I made a little CD, a couple of songs on it, and there was this song on there called Subliminal Twist. What I did on this song was I named all the redneck teachers in the school without naming them, right? Like there was a teacher there named Mr. Hunt. It's a young black fella on the hunt, sick of being called a little black. That. There was a price. I said, is this the price of education, heartaches, racism, and discrimination? So yeah, I handed in this CD, and regular day at Nowra High School, Corey Webster to the principal's office. Oh yeah, it's Tuesday. Let's go down. Go down. He's red. He's staring at me. I was like, oh, well, what now? And I look down. He's got my CD on the table. He slides it like this, and he goes, "We refuse to mark this. You sign yourself out now, or we're kicking you out." And I said, "Well, give me the papers." Signed myself out that day. Had to go home and face mum and dad. Was a bit scared of that one. And it all happened so fast. Kicked out that day, go home. Guess what, mum? I got kicked out of school. A couple of weeks after that, I packed my bags and I left. I left Nowra, 17 years old. Went to Nasda for a little bit on the Central Coast there. I was back and forth between Nasda and Redfern. Yeah, music became like my only option. Like that, for me, I didn't know what else to do. You know, it happened to get me kicked out of school, but it also led me on this journey that I'm on to now. So hanging out in Redfern, you know, as you said before, MC Hammer, Whoopi, Michael Jackson, Snoop Dogg, and that, everyone used to come there. One day, I was hanging out at the community centre where I'd go all the time and just make music. And Black Eyed Peas rocked up one day for a visit. So they came in and we ended up having like a little freestyle session. And at the end of it, their executive producer comes up to me and said, "Oh, we like what you do. How'd you like to fly to LA, work on a song with Taboo?" And I was like, "Oh, bullshit, eh?" But yeah, sure enough, it happened.
This actually happened?
Yeah.
On the block?
On the
at
block.
Redfern Community Centre?
So I owed that place a lot. Yeah. Yep.
Raz.
Yeah, and then...
I couldn't find that on Google.
Oh, yes. That's on, what's the old one? The MSN one.
Oh, yeah.
You got to go back.
Yahoo.
Yahoo, that's him. Yeah.
So you went to the States, did you go?
Yeah. Went out there, recorded a song, done like the soft launch out there. It never officially got released. It's the music industry, eh? Sometimes albums don't come out. So it was going to be one of the first singles, but the album it was on didn't end up coming out. But we launched the song over there, hit a, you know, got spoken about on a few lists and stuff with Kanye and Lil Wayne. I thought that was sick. But never, you know, eventuated, never came out. But it done a lot for me when I came home. I thought I was going to be famous. I thought I'd be the first Kid Laroi. But Kid Laroi was the first Kid Laroi.
He was the first.
Nearly got it.
From Waterloo, too.
Yeah. And then, so I just came home, had to work hard, you know, doing shows and building my reputation and my name up. And then I was doing that for a while, which led to meeting Briggs. And signed the Bad Apples music there first, and was knocking around with Briggsy for a while, and done all that. Then went over to Triple J, started the first Blackfella show they got there, and then kicked off 3% and done all that, and then 4 ARIA awards now. So hopefully get 1.5 of them.
Wow, it's actually the most in ARIA history of actually First Nations nominations.
Yeah, Big Mob this year.
Big Mob,
Yeah.
that's going to be a blackout.
Yeah.
So when you go to an event and there's a lot of black fellas, everyone goes, "Oh man, this is a blackout."
Yeah.
That's your show that you broadcast.
Blackout.
Called Blackout on Sunday nights.
Yeah, it was,
on Triple J.
Yeah, it was funny. We're making it. Like, what are you going to call it? I was like, I wouldn't call it Blackout. And there's white fellas, you know, what's that mean? It means it's our party now. We're all here, you know. So yeah.
And you play black music.
Yeah.
The first song that I listened to recently was Yothiyindi.
Yeah.
It was Treaty. And I started to think about this fella plays the same music that I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
because my dad was the CEO of an Aboriginal radio station that played Aboriginal music. But what's interesting is my dad in Queensland said, how do we get into the homes of white fellas? How do we get our voices, our stories into and messages into mainstream Australian homes? So what he thought about, genius idea, is we'll play country music. We'll play country music and we'll bring a little bit of Aboriginal music, but more country. So copped a bit of slack from the Aboriginal community because there's a radio station that was an Aboriginal radio station playing majority country music, but it actually worked. A lot of people that I've met have said that their first introduction to Aboriginal culture was through listening to my dad on radio. So the power of music, you know, I could see now with your journey of coming from Nowra and then, you know, being signed now to Sony, being able to work with people like not just Jessica Mauboy, who we all love, but even the presets.
Yeah.
My People, can you please share? Is it the first time that they've allowed someone to touch their song?
Yes. And actually, I spoke to him on the phone yesterday. It was mad. I've got his number now.
Oh, look out.
Yeah.
Watch out.
But yeah, it was the first time they've ever let anyone touch their music, which was sick to do. But for me, it's funny. Like, I've always been like a bit of a dreamer, hey. So that song came out when I was a kid in Nowra, and I was just starting to rap at this time. And I remember hearing this, and you know, a big part of rap music is sampling and stuff. And I'm like, I'm walking around Nowra listening to this song. I'm like, one day I'm going to touch this song. And I did attempt it once upon a time, but it wasn't the right moment. Didn't try to reach out to him. Nothing happened with the song. I just mucked around with it. And then, you know, fast forward years on, I was doing workshops out of Juvie, out Western Sydney there, and you know, it's a revolving door, that place. These young mob are in and out. And this one day in particular, there was like a new intake of young fellas, and these lads were young. And I'm like, these 10-year-olds were there. And seeing them come in, I was like, nah, that's not, you know, we all know it happens, but to be there and see it, it's a different thing. And one little fella I knew, and I'm like, nah, man, what are you doing in here?
Like your little brother.
Yeah, and it was. I walked out of the spot that day feeling a bit heavy. And then so I jumped in the car. I was cruising home, and I chuck on the radio, and all I hear is this stuff about Alice Springs, right? It added to the weight to the point where I was like, "There's too much with me right now. I can't go home because I'm gonna take that bad shit home." I go to the studio. Rang Angus and Dallas, happened to be in town for something. I was like, lads, you got to meet me at the studio. I got to, you know, something I got to say. And so yeah, went to the studio and had our producer there who we usually work with. And he goes, what are we doing today? I said, lad, load up the presets. So we're going to sample that and turn it into our thing. You know, that locked up with My People part. And we made the song. And, you know, sometimes when you make these songs, it's like the old fellas are telling you, yeah, that's the one. You said what we wanted you to say, which is exactly what happened in that moment. Jumped in the car, said to the boys, I said, this is how we start this thing. And, yeah, released it. And then they heard the song, the presets, and they loved what we did with it, and they let us do it. And it was, again, because it is the first time they've let anyone sample their stuff, it was a pretty big deal in the industry and that. So we made a bit of noise.
Of course, so people know who you are. Yeah.
Join us next week for part 2 of Mundanara's Yarn with Nooky.
So there was 3 awards that go out. There was 4 or 5 of us left. Yeah, made it to the final bit, but this is where I get dusted. So it was Pharrell and Rihanna. They tied for like the gold one. And then there's me and Ed Sheeran left. And then I ended up getting the bronze one. And then I have a laugh. I say, he's bronze enough. He didn't need anymore, you know?
If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.